All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to paint their door a vibrant shade of blue. Others have the need to decorate their bathroom with fish, anchors, and other nautical items. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
Coming up on episode 304 of Wheel Bearings, we got the Lexus RX500h, the Mercedes-Benz GLE SUV, the Ram Rampage, a possible electric replacement for the Kia Stinger. Texas and Washington mandate NACS connectors on their EV chargers. Rivian buys a better route planner, and we get our first look at the Chevy Silverado EV work truck. All that and more coming up next. This is episode 304 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam with Will Sandwich from Guidehouse Insights.
And I am Nicole Wakeland from the Road Reflected podcast.
And I am Roberto Baldwin from Ars Technica.
And I guess you don't have anything that you can talk about this week, right, Robbie?
I did a lot of I went to Germany and I saw a bunch of things I'm not allowed to talk about. And then I went to Korea and I drove the EV9, but I can't talk about it yet. I just got back, so the Seltos and the Audi Q8, they're both in my driveway. I've only driven each of them like to the store, so I really can't say much other than they're cars. So
do they look like cars? They appear to be working cars.
Do they both have four wheels?
They both have four wheels, a steering wheel. One is the gas version and one is the electric version, and that's pretty much. Let me think. There's got to be something I can just say quickly about them.
So the Q8 is the new, the rebranded e-tron, which is now the Q8 e-tron, which is not the same as a Q8 that we've known for several years. It's basically an upgraded version of what we used to call just the e-tron.
Yeah. So there was the e-tron A3, which was a PHEV. Then there was the e-tron. Then there was the e-tron GT. And then
there was also the e-tron Sportback.
The e-tron Sportback, and then the e-tron Q4. So now the original e-tron, not the e-tron A3, but the original e-tron is now the Q8 e-tron, and I'm sure there'll be a Q8 e-tron Sportback at some point.
I think all of these manufacturers are going to have a sit down and have a real rethink about their whole naming strategy for their EVs.
Yeah, because you can't you don't call it you can't keep putting the fact that it's an EV in the name somehow. It's got to stop.
When everything's an EV, does it matter?
Right? Does it matter anymore?
When everything's an EV in 10 to 15 years, everything will just revert. Like the car I'm driving now would just be called the Q8 because there won't be a gas version of the Q8. It'll just be the Q8. Well, like the EQS will just be the S class, and etc. The Ford Lightning the F-150 Lightning will just be the F-150.
I wonder if Cadillac will change their naming strategy again, because they've gone from alphanumerics, most recently CT for the sedans and XT for the utilities, except for the Escalade, which has always been just the Escalade. To giving them names like Lyric and Celestiq, and all of the names end in IQ. But because the Escalade has so much brand equity,
Escaladic,
they're not exactly renaming it, but they're calling it the Escalade IQ.
IQ, yeah.
And we're actually going to see that in a little over a month.
But then that'll just be the Escalade. But Cadillac just kills off cars it's just
That's
no.
True.
Cadillac kills off cars like a communist dictator. It just
like Google.
Oh my God, it kills
like that. Those didn't even exist. You're like, what are you talking about? Racing photos of them.
Well, Mercedes is probably the most confusing because they've got the EQs. They got EQS and EQE and EQB, but then they have EQS SUV, EQE SUV. It's stupid.
The EQS SUV. It would just be the GLS. At some point, it'll just be the S-Class and the GLS.
Yeah.
But for now, we're the EQS SUV.
It's really confusing.
Well, we can talk about the Q8 e-tron next time. Are you ready yet, Nicole?
I am ready. Sorry,
Okay,
I was running a late start this morning. So I am in fact driving Mercedes. I am driving the GLE SUV. So it's their SUV. It's a 2-row SUV, but you can get a 3rd row. Have either of you guys ever seen it with a 3rd row inside of that?
I have seen it with a 3rd row.
Is it as squished as it seems like in my mind?
Yes.
Yeah, I have the 2-row, and
it's like the Outlander plug-in hybrid I had a couple of weeks back.
Okay, because I thought I was like, oh, 2 rows. I'm like, wait, there's an optional 3rd row, and I literally sat there looking at it. I'm like, how do you fit a 3rd row in this?
It's an E-Class. It's not. It's like a mid-size SUV. It's not huge.
Yeah. So, but if you want to squish a 3rd row in there, and my first impression was like, heck no. And I think you're kind of seconding that, Sam. It's going to be a really squishy 3rd row, but I had it with just 2. And the 2nd row in the 2-row version is actually pretty roomy. There's actually a good amount of leg room. Like I opened the doors and I truly thought, wow, like this would fit 3 adults across who aren't going to be completely squished. And if you actually are tall, you're going to have room for your knees without hitting the front seats. You're going to have room for your head. So if you're really looking for a 2-row that has a truly 3-person 2nd row, then this is the way to go. If you're looking for a 3-row, I don't know. My guess is it's not going to be the best idea. Although you could do it. I'm like, I don't know. So for 24, it gets some little bits and changes. The big change, and I'm not driving this one, is there's a new plug-in hybrid powertrain that you can get on the GLE. That is not the one I had. I had the 450, which is and now I just lost it because I told you I was ready, Sam. It's a 3-liter 6-cylinder turbo, 375 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque. So it's it goes zoom. It's fast. It's responsive. And it has that Mercedes-Benz quiet. Mercedes, most of them, unless you're getting like, I guess, into the AMGs when they're sort of supposed to be a little bit loud and a little bit obnoxious, but not too loud and obnoxious, because still Mercedes. It accelerates strongly, but it's quiet and it's well mannered and it's not aggressive, and it's a very luxury car in its ride. Handles beautifully. This is not a small SUV. It's a proper SUV. It's not like some crossover masquerading as a large vehicle. It is a pretty good size, but it never feels unwieldy, and it handles. Man, does this suspension system soak up the bumps? Like my test currently is the Sumner Tunnel in Boston, which is its own private little war zone, driving through there with a construction, and it is terrible because they're doing all this construction in the tunnel, which has destroyed the already Boston road surface from all the construction and the stuff and everything they're doing. So it is miserable. Like you go through there in a Jeep right now and you're like, holy cow, you're like bouncing all over the place. This, you didn't even feel a bump. So it was really, really, really well mannered. It's nice to drive. I like it overall. I've decided I like the Hey Mercedes voice assistant system. I like the Hey Mercedes. I feel like in this one it worked pretty well.
It's already working for you?
It's decided to work for me, or at least in this exact configuration on this car, it could hear my exact voice properly and perfectly. Almost every single time I asked it something, it gave me exactly what I was doing. I'm like, hey Mercedes, change the channel to blah, blah, blah. And
they're really good at updating that thing and making sure it's like better every time you get in a new.
Exactly, because I've used it in the past and thought it was okay, like or so, or it was like average. Like half the time it gets you, half the time it has no idea what you're saying. I hardly had to repeat myself at all, which is kind of nice, because using the whole voice activated assistance in there is only helpful in not making you distracted when you don't find yourself on the third try screaming, change the radio to channel 10, like when you're
Mercedes.
Getting, yes, when you're getting like, damn it, Mercedes, listen, hey Mercedes, God damn it, listen.
My child won't listen to me, at least you will.
I know, at least technology should listen. So this one did. This is a well-behaved child. So I had no problems with that, and I actually really liked that. And of course, it delivers the typical this like luxury interior that you want from Mercedes. It was funny. So when I shared it, the interior of the one I have has this sort of, it's not a saddle brown. It's a little bit darker brown, it's nice leather, and it's kind of a little bit of a pebbly-ish kind of texture to it. It's actually really, really pretty. And it covers everything that could have leather has leather. It covers everything. There's a lot of leather in this. And then it's like leather everywhere.
Draped a herd of cows.
Just like all cow. Just all the cows inside.
So this is not the Mercedes for vegans?
This is not if you're vegan, go to another car. And it also has, the real wood trim, not like the heavily lacquered stuff that looks kind of tacky, but just natural.
Open pore.
Yeah. So it's this beautiful, and it's the same. It's like, again, it's like sort of a darkish brown. It looks beautiful with the leather. It creates this very sort of upscale interior. But then someone said to me, it reminded them of a 1970s living room. And as soon as he said that, I was like, son of a, and it does. Because it's like looking at wood paneling, and like, it's just, yeah. And I was like, well, you ruined this interior for me. But it is very pretty. And, you get things like, these sound like little silly nothings, but in a car that is a luxury car, and a lot of that is the passenger and driver experience. Aside from the actual driving, it's the experience of riding in one. You get little touches like the speakers, those Burmester. Am I saying that right? Burmester. The speaker, the grill covers. Burmeister. However like he said it.
Like German, heat miser.
Like heat miser. Except sound, not heat. So they have these beautiful grills that are like very perfect. Like they're just pretty, and they're these aluminum grills that add a lot of like. You open the door, like, wow, look at the pretty grill with the pretty leather with the pretty wood trim, and then there's this ambient lighting, and it's sort of all over the place. And as night falls, if you're driving, as your car slowly glows to life on the inside, it's sort of neat to see all this little bit lighting. And of course, you can pick one of a gazillion shades, whatever color you want it to be, pretty much on the rainbow, you can make it that color. So I do like that. And it has a little bit more ground clearance, and you can, it has like an off-road package that you can get that adds some like protection underneath and an air suspension, and I think like a little over like 1.2 inches, I think, of ground clearance. And then you can see different stuff on the infotainment screen if you have that package, like the roll angles and the compass. And so you can get a little bit more of an idea what your vehicle is doing, which again, we've said this a million times with luxury cars. How often are people actually doing any of the off-road stuff? And they're like, this one starts at about $70,000. How often are you really, truly taking this off-road at $70,000? I don't know. I feel like the roughest road.
I asked them about this.
What did
Mercedes
they say?
About their offer. Like they are capable. It's things people want, and so we are delivering.
But no idea how many people are like, I think I want to go off-road in my Mercedes.
Well, I mean, they know that most of them aren't going to, but they want to say, you know what? If that's what the market wants, the market wants the possibility of going off-road.
I think the entire planet
more than happy to do it.
I think the entire planet just wants to be really ready in case we have a zombie apocalypse. I mean, chances are pretty slim, but I feel like everyone wants to be ready. I don't know.
I mean, after the last 3 years, you really be certain of that?
Higher chances than there were.
The end of civilization just feels like every day, like you wake up, you're like, what's going on? You're like, oh man, I'm glad I got that Mercedes EQE or Mercedes.
We're going to be able to bug out like nobody's business.
PLE. Yeah. So I can stay nice and comfy until the gas runs out.
And it has actually, nice and comfy. And you can pack all your necessary like survival supplies in the back, because it does have a pretty roomy amount of space back there. So you have good room for cargo. And I love this. So there's a button. I'm all about little things, right? So there's a button in the cargo area. You push the button glows red. And if you watch really carefully, it lowers the suspension. Just a little bit. Just a bit. And then when you push the button again, it does not make that sound. It doesn't sound that cool. It goes back up. But the thing is, if you have something heavy to load, if you're loading a lot of stuff and you don't have to keep lifting up, or if you're loading something heavy, just a small difference in that suspension height makes a big difference.
So that's in the cargo area?
In the cargo area. Like when you're in the cargo area and you look on the right-hand side, like above the right rear wheel, there's just this little button. Push the button, car goes up and down. And it's not like suddenly drops. It's a small air suspension always thinks it's going to be this big change. It's a little change, but it's enough that you think, okay, if I was loading up a lot of stuff, like I'm just filling this full of stuff, or if I'm trying to haul out stuff that happens to be heavy, that's going to make a huge difference. I thought that, again, was one of those little things that you're not going to find in every car. And no, it's not the be-all, end-all reason for buying this, but it does add to the appeal. Like, oh, look at that. It can make it loading cargo easier. So I'm not, strung out in bed because I pulled my back trying to load stuff in for my zombie apocalypse run. So I like that. So overall, I think that I like this car. I mean, it starts at $70,000. So it's, again, it's in luxury car territory. But I feel like $70,000 for this vehicle is not unreasonable. Like I feel like it's a good price for this. I mean, you can go crazy if you want to start looking like they have this as an AMG. There's an AMG, 53 or 63, so you get varying amounts of horsepower like that are just bazonkers with those. And if you want that kind of additional level of performance, look and feel in your luxury, you can do that. But I feel like just staying in the standard old GLE range of vehicles, and if you want the plug-in hybrid, that's there for you if you want the fuel efficiency. So overall, I think it's good. I don't have a Monroney, unfortunately, and the build isn't entirely live, so I couldn't exactly build it on Mercedes, but it starts at $69,500 according to the Mercedes website. So starting at 70, probably mine's probably like 75 or 80. They probably put stuff on there that isn't standard that I can't tell what. So it's definitely a luxury vehicle, but it feels every bit the luxury vehicle, and I think it's a nice option. I don't think I get it in 3 rows though. I think 3 rows would not be my thing. I don't feel like I feel like it's
at the end of the world. You just pick like 3 other people.
Right. You only get to travel. There's only 5 of you that get to travel. If you get the extra people, they're going to go through your supplies, and then you're going to have to let someone go.
There's more people and less supplies if you do that.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Exactly.
So as long as we're talking about the end of the world, I'd like to address an issue that I've noticed in a few post-apocalyptic shows I've seen recently.
Okay.
Most recent, let's see. There was now I'm blanking on the show, on what the show was. It wasn't Station 11.
Is one of us?
The Last of Us.
The Last of Us. It was close. Yes. One of us.
Okay.
The Last of Us.
And there was, there's been a couple of others where this popped up as well.
Yes.
We're talking like 10, 20 years post some apocalypse. When civilization collapsed. Whether it was because of some mushrooms or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And these people are trying to make their way through this environment, trying to get from one place to another, and they're finding abandoned vehicles, and they're siphoning what remained of the fuel in other vehicles that were abandoned.
Okay.
And if you have ever tried to use gasoline that's been sitting in a can in your garage for more than 6 months, for your lawnmower or your weed whacker or any other, gas powered device,
yes,
you will know that, in this post-apocalyptic environment where we are no longer, extracting petroleum from the ground and refining it into gasoline, that anything that you find in a tank that's been sitting there for 10 years or more
is worthless.
Yes, you might as well put water in there.
It's completely worse. Like you have to put stabilizer, and if you have a motorcycle and you store it over the winter, you have to put stabilizer in the gas tank.
I love that this is the thing that you called out. This is such an auto journalist thing, and it's brilliant.
So my whole thing is that the EV is the more that makes way more sense for the apocalypse, because if you can gather up some solar panels, you can gather up some batteries, and you can charge an EV, because
that's true. You could make it work.
Electricity, and the batteries will last longer. Gas, like you have. That's why at least in the Mad Max franchise, they have refineries still. You have to go to
that's
you
true.
have to go somewhere and
there's gangs of crazy people, guarding these refineries, but they're still refining.
They still
petroleum.
exist.
Still refining. Yeah, the whole idea were like, well, we just need. I think The Last of Us, the big issue was the battery itself. The batteries were corroding.
Yeah.
Like 12-volt batteries, which that's an issue. But also but really the main issue is like none of that gas is any good. All that gas is completely worthless.
So what you're bringing up, Sam, is that really the angle that the entire planet, the government and all EV companies should have taken was forget about saving everything. Forget about saving the planet.
If you want to escape from the zombies,
you need to have an EV. That would accelerate EV adoption if we could just get everybody to understand that.
An EV and some solar panels.
That's all you need, and you can survive.
The guy who was it, the gentleman who started FedEx, he and a bunch of generals, they started a whole I don't know, not society, federation, something about moving past gasoline for the security of the United States.
Really?
And a lot of it has to do with going EV, because you're not beholden to another country. But again, the end of the world, you're going to want to get like a book on electronics, but B, you should be setting up solar panels on your house, because it's free, and you should have battery packs, and then you can charge your EV.
See, I don't need to study electronics. I
do all that stuff.
I just married an engineer. I'm like, should the zombie apocalypse happen, he's going to need to step up and figure things out for me.
Yeah, you get the 4xe. I mean, you still have enough to get around
I do. I'm good.
Yeah. We got the Kona. What do you got? What do you got, Sam?
Well, right now we don't have anything electric that
Well, he has his
Sam,
dog.
You're done, though.
Yeah,
Dog, you give him a little dog sled.
yeah.
I want to see Daisy pulling a dog sled. I don't think Daisy's pulling anybody on a dog sled.
Daisy's pretty tough. She can pull pretty hard when she wants to. If we're out on a walk and a storm starts rolling in, and she'll hear a little bit of thunder 10 miles away, and as soon as she hears that, it's like boom, she knows exactly the fastest way to get home, and she is pulling on that leash to get home and climb into our shower.
So when she perceives that her life is in imminent danger, the doggo can move.
Or when she is being obstinate and decides that she doesn't want to walk. I can pull on that leash as much as I want. She only weighs a little over 30 pounds.
Tiny. Yeah, she's a little dog.
She has got some kind of
very low
traction
center
control.
of gravity.
She does.
Yeah.
She's got a very low center of gravity, so she's like, she's like an anchor.
All right.
Little anchor.
End of the world,
okay.
get an EV.
Yeah. But
That's
by
advice.
the EQE SUV instead of the GLE SUV.
There you go. There's your lesson.
You'll survive the zombie
Right.
apocalypse.
There you
Best
go.
EV for the end of the world. Something it has probably the.
Best
Ioniq.
EV for the end of the world.
Let's say the Ioniq 5.
You wouldn't say the Lightning because it can get through stuff because it's
No,
a
because
truck?
the Lightning's it's inefficient versus the Ioniqs.
But like if you have to drive over the zombies.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a
if you've
crowd
got
of them,
to
there's a horde.
drive through some barriers or something like that, you probably want something with a little more
I'm going with a pickup
mass
truck.
to get that momentum that's going to carry you
Hummer.
through.
The Hummer, it's a tank.
No,
See, the Hummer goes a little too far in that direction. I think you need something with a little bit better.
So is the
mix of,
F-150?
the F-150 would be
Lightning
good.
is the happy medium.
The Silverado EV, I think, would also be a good choice.
Okay.
And we'll be talking a little more about that
I don't know. It
later
just
on.
takes so long to charge those.
That's
It
true.
does. It's a trade-off. Do you think you have the time to charge it? You're just going to have to fully charge it during the downtime between horde attacks.
Just put a
when
cow catcher on top of a Ioniq 5 because it has a lot of headroom. It's got a lot of storage space.
Do you know they did back in the day when
Cowcatchers.
The Walking Dead first came out? I think it was Hyundai, and somewhere I have a picture of me in it. They did a Hyundai that they made into a Walking Dead vehicle.
I remember
as a
that.
tie-in. And when they let you inside of it at New York Comic Con, and you could push the buttons, and it made sounds like it was doing all the things, firing guns or whatever, and it was all tricked out. But I'm like, and they have the sounds. I'm like, do you really want anyone pushing these in the middle of the conference? He's like, probably not. We probably shouldn't have.
Wasn't that on an Elantra, I think, or
I
something?
think it was an Elantra. I have a picture of myself standing up through the sunroof of the thing, and I think it was an Elantra. Was it?
Yeah, they had it at
totally
NACS
tricked
as
out.
well.
Yeah, it was
They
super
took it around
fun.
to on the auto show circuit that year.
Yeah.
All right.
You guys keep talking. I'm gonna keep thinking about this. Maybe maybe the EQE SUV.
I want to know what a listener thinks of. Guys, send us all your top picks and why.
What is your
for a zombie apocalypse vehicle?
Your top post-apocalypse vehicle.
Yeah, top post-apocalypse vehicle. Yeah, and
EQE SUV because it's off-road capable. It's higher off the ground. It's and it's still pretty efficient.
Okay, well, good.
There we
That
go.
works. Okay.
All right. Smartphones have gotten way more expensive over the past decade, and all it takes is one impact on a hard floor to make you wish you had spent a few bucks to put a case on it. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not having a case for your phone, and it only costs a few dollars a month. Nicole, Robbie, and I travel a lot for our work, and we spend a lot of time in hotels, coffee shops, airplanes, and of course the Delta Sky Club. Connecting to the Wi-Fi in any public places with shared Wi-Fi puts your data at risk because bad actors could be intercepting what you send and using it to steal from you. It only takes some cheap hardware to intercept Wi-Fi data, and even a smart preteen can do it. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per victim selling personal information on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops the bad guys by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN uses state-of-the-art encryption that would take a supercomputer up to 1 billion years to crack. I have ExpressVPN on all my devices, including a MacBook Pro, Windows laptops and desktops, and Android and iOS phones and laptops, or tablets. When I want to be secure, I just launch the app, click once to connect, and my data is secure. As I said, I travel a lot for my work, and I have to connect to countless public Wi-Fi networks in many countries. I have ExpressVPN on all my connected devices so that whoever else is on the same network can't see any of my data. That's important because I often have to check banks, credit card accounts, and transmit client data that might be sensitive, as well as filing articles on news that might be under embargo. ExpressVPN protects all of it, and I've been paying for my own account for years. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings, and you can get an extra 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? If you're a woman, you're not alone. With over 1,000 hormone disruptors in our environment, it's no wonder things can feel out of balance. On top of that, natural changes like PMS, menopause, and other life stages can leave you feeling tired, irritable, and trapped in a constant battle with your body. But here's the good news. You don't have to suffer through it. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is here to help. This herbal formula fine-tunes your hormones, balancing estrogen, testosterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol, which can contribute to weight gain, racing thoughts, poor sleep, and more. With over 40,000 five-star reviews and a bottle selling every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. Ready to feel like yourself again? For a limited time, get 15% off your first order at happymammoth.com using code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. We've updated the Wheel Bearings merch store, and now there's a whole bunch of new choices, new colors, new styles, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, mugs, travel mugs, stickers, aprons, tote bags, you name it. You can get your Wheel Bearings merch at shop.wheelbearings.media. Go check it out. That's shop.wheelbearings.media.
Sorry about that.
So for a vehicle that is perhaps not quite as suitable for the post-apocalypse, I had the 2023 Lexus RX500h this week, and we first drove the new RX back in September, I think, in Santa Barbara. And when I talked about it after that first drive experience, one of the big things that one of the only things I really complained about with that car is that the new Lexus infotainment system, which I've used on a number of different Lexi and essentially the same system is on newer Toyotas as well, and it's always worked surprisingly well for especially given that it came from Toyota, who have a not so stellar history of these things. The new system actually works very well. But on the RX, for some reason, my driving partner and I, Tanya Gadzik, who's been on the show a couple times with us.
Yay, Tanya.
We drove 3 different RXs that day, and every single one of them absolutely refused to recognize my voice when I said, "Hey, Lexus."
Discriminating against you.
If Tanya said it was fine. It was perfect. If I said anything, I'd say, "Nope, sorry. You're out of luck." Probably because maybe it's because I drove to the event in a Lucid Air.
It was
maybe it was jealous.
Yeah.
Could have been jealous. It could have been like you and your Lucid. Forget it, not listening.
But
you keep your American.
I've tried the same
keep
system.
Your American performance luxury to yourself.
I've tried the same system in the NACS and some other vehicles, and it worked fine. Well, when I got the RX500h delivered to my driveway, the first thing I did was I went out, turned it on, and said, "Hey, Lexus." And you know what happened?
It listened.
It listened. It popped up and said, "Yes, how can I help you?"
You're like,
actually,
oh my gosh.
I don't think it actually said, "How can I help you?" But it popped up on the screen, and was waiting for me to say something. So it recognized my voice, and it responded to the commands I gave it and, to the requests I made of it, it mostly did the right stuff. And it generally worked quite well. So my beef with the Lexus RX voice recognition system is over.
Oh, the feud has ended.
I'm content with it now.
Yay!
So the rest of the vehicle, if you are familiar with the previous generation RX, this current generation RX will look very, very familiar to you. It's been refined. There's changes. They've made some changes, particularly to the way they've implemented the spindle grille. But it will look very, very familiar. It's now available currently with 3 powertrain options, soon to add a 4th. So you can get it with a 2.4 liter turbo 4-cylinder. So there's no more V6 engines in the RX like there were in the past. 2.4 liter turbo 4-cylinder gas engine is available. You can also get it as a RX350h hybrid, which has the traditional Toyota power split hybrid system with the eCVT, the continuously variable transmission. And we've talked about that. We talked about it at some length, when we discussed the Grand Highlander. It's the same powertrain that's in there. So it's a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated. And so when you're accelerating hard, it revs itself up to 4,000 RPM and sits there. It spins at $4,000 until the car catches up with the speed. And the same is true for the RX350h. And then there is the RX500h, which has the powertrain that when you get this powertrain in Toyota vehicles like the Crown or the Grand Highlander, they brand it as no, it's not iForce Max. Hybrid Max. Yes, Hybrid Max. So this is the 2.4 liter turbo again, but now with a hybrid system with a 6-speed automatic transmission. So no more CVT in there. This is a much more pleasant experience to drive.
I like the description. This is more pleasant.
Yeah. And, especially, given, this car, this vehicle's got some heft to it. I mean, it's not exceptionally heavy for, compared to its competition, but it's not a lightweight. Mm-hmm. And so the hybrid system in the 350h, this is going to be doing some work. In the 500h, it's way nicer to drive. It's clearly not as efficient. It's rated at 27 miles per gallon combined. I got about 26. But it's a lot more fun. It's got a lot more power. In the RX350h, you get a combined 246 horsepower and 233 foot-pounds of torque from the hybrid system. In the 500h, that jumps to 366 horsepower, so an extra 120 horsepower, and more importantly, 406 foot-pounds of torque. So you get almost double the torque that you get with the 350h. And that makes a huge difference. And because you've got a traditional step ratio transmission, you don't have it revving up to 4,000 RPM and winding away there as the vehicle accelerates, that motorboating effect. So it's a lot more fun to drive. My recommendation, if you are in the market for an RX, is if you can swing it, go with the 500h. Mm-hmm. Or either that or the base gas RX 350. I would generally stay away from the 350h, especially, in a, what's, meant to be a premium, luxury vehicle. This is a much more suitable combination for this type of vehicle. With that performance, it'll do 0 to 60 in about 5.9 seconds, according to Lexus, which is about, a second and a half faster than the 350, and also quicker than the gas engine as well. With that turbo hybrid system, it's all-wheel drive only. So it's got an e-axle. There's an electric motor on the rear axle, and it's also biased more. It's not rear biased in terms of its power output, but it's got more of a rear bias, so it feels more balanced. So if you're doing some spirited driving on some curvy roads, there will be less understeer it feels more fun to drive overall. The RX as a whole, even though the exterior styling doesn't look dramatically different from the previous generation, the interior is much nicer. It no longer has that bad Lexus touchpad.
Yay!
You now have, it has a touchscreen. As we know, I'm not a fan of touchscreens, but I'll take that over that touchpad any day.
Yeah, like the touchpad is the absolute worst of all the possible controls.
The Lexus touchpad implementation.
Touchpad is really bad. At least the Acura one was 1-to-1 wherever you put your finger on that little pad.
But if you had touchscreen, touchpad, or dial, what's your worst, generally speaking?
I feel like the dial takes your eye off the road a lot longer.
So you think dial is harder to use than touchpad generally?
Just because you're like turning it and you're like, is it there? 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 Oh my God, there's a car. Stop.
I don't know. I mean, I
the
can usually
implementation of the touchpad is also like the Lexus implementation is bad. The Acura implementation was good. It's just that the Acura implementation it's really good for someone who uses a Wacom tablet like I do. Where it's 1-to-1. Like it's a representation of what the screen is where your finger is. So if the thing's in the top right hand corner, you just put your finger there as opposed to sort of dragging it.
Wondering where you are and trying to find it. Yeah.
So the touch screen is good. It's a nice 14-inch display. Looks really good. Looks good. It's still very clearly visible even with polarized sunglasses on, something that a lot of past Toyota and Lexus vehicles have had challenges with. One of the things I really like, one of the features I really like on the RX is they've got cross traffic alert on the front as well as the back. So, I mean, we've had cars that have blind spot monitoring also at the back also have cross traffic alert when you're backing out of a parking space. The Lexus also has this on the front, and with the heads up display, if it detects a car coming from either from your left or your right when you're at an intersection, it'll flash arrows in the HUD, and give you an alert saying, hey, there's somebody approaching. If you're about to turn, and say you're making a right-hand turn, you're sitting there at the intersection getting ready to make a right-hand turn, and somebody's coming through the intersection from your left, you may not be glancing over there, the HUD will show, hey, there's somebody approaching from your left, or vice versa as well. It works the other way as well. That worked really nicely. The lane tracing assist, works really well. It's a essentially a hands-on level 2 system now, that does a really good job of staying in the center of the lane, tracking the lane when you're driving on the highway. It has an infrared driver monitor system in there, like most of the hands-off systems. And there's also capacitive sensors in the steering wheel rim, like hands-off systems like Super Cruise. So even though it currently does not technically allow hands-off capability, basically, you can just have a couple of fingertips touching the steering wheel when you're driving on the highway, and it will be totally happy. It'll drive down the road. It won't do things like auto lane change at this point. Who knows? Maybe at some point in the future, they may have an update, a software update that can enable, allow it to go hands-free. It doesn't have that today. One of the other nice things that they have that's also on some of the newer Toyotas and other Lexi is I forget the exact terminology they're using for it, but the camera is looking ahead at the road, looking for curves in the road, and if you're approaching a curve in the road, if it thinks your speed is maybe a little bit high for that curve, it will automatically slow you down a little bit. If you're using adaptive cruise control. So for example, around here, driving up US 23, getting onto M14, getting on, or even just continuing up 23 on the north side of Ann Arbor, there's a couple of curves that are relatively sharp. And if I have the ACC on, set for speed of prevailing traffic, as it comes to those curves, that automatically backs off by a few miles an hour, gets through the curve, and then resumes. And it shows you a little icon, little curvy road icon in the HUD to let you know that, yeah, this is what I'm doing right now.
So it tells you, so you're not wondering like what the heck's going on. It's
yeah,
like,
why are you slowing down?
Yeah.
It's like, because trying to help you out here, be able to keep you on the road.
Keep you on the road. Please don't crash me.
Yeah. So that a lot of really good assistance, convenience and safety features on there that work fairly unobtrusively. It doesn't like slam on the brakes when it's doing that. It's nice gradual decel and then resumption, and it's just it's quite transparent, and it fits in with the kind of Guardian strategy that Toyota, the folks at Toyota Research Institute have been talking about for a few years, where the systems are acting, as a co-pilot to help you out. It's not trying to completely take over the vehicle, but, if you're doing something that, maybe, less than ideal for the conditions, it'll kind of step in and just kind of, trying to keep things on the straight and narrow, so to speak.
That's fair.
This time around, unlike the last generation of RX, there will not be an RXL, which like the GLE you had,
yes,
was a slightly longer version of the previous gen RX that added a third seat in there.
I feel like it was such okay, we give it a third row, more people will like this because it suits two people. No, it doesn't. People, if you want a third row, that's not the car you want.
Yeah, because it was a useless third row.
It just didn't do anything.
Well, they introduced that the same year. They removed the third row from a larger Lexus vehicle. It was really weird.
It's a weird strategy. I feel like
the GX.
Yeah, they took out the third row, but they from the GX, but they added a third row to the RX, and it made what? It was so. Oh.
It's a strange strategy.
Well, this time around, we're getting the TX instead, which we saw a few weeks ago.
Yes, the Lexus Texas.
Yeah,
Lexus Texas.
Yeah.
No one thought about that, huh? No one sat down and like, oh wait, hold on.
Nobody thought about that.
Lexus Texas.
The RX 500h that I had was finished in copper crest, which is an awesome color. Kind of copper colored.
I gotta look it up now. What does copper crest Lexus look like? I gotta Google.
It's a very, very attractive color.
Oh, I think I know which one this is. Yeah, that is a cool color. Yeah. Actually, do you remember? That's a really nifty color. I like cars in funky colors like that.
So the RX 500h starts at $61,600. As equipped, mine came to $73,690, which is fairly pricey, but it had the Mark Levinson sound system with 14 speakers, and which is like a $2,200 option. And a bunch.
Mark Levinson. It sounds like a guy down the street. Your audiophile neighbor. He's like, I got these new tube amps and
I got this really cool audio system, Bob, down the street.
Got quadrifoot sound. Like nothing's made for that, Bob.
But if it was,
you want to take a guess at the destination charge?
$11.95.
$11.90.
Oh. So close and yet so far. $11.50. You were both over.
Oh gosh, dang it!
So everybody loses today.
You got to go $1 over or just $1.
Yeah.
What I was trying. I don't like just like $1. I want to come close.
Do you want to win the game, or do you want to be the closest?
You want to win the game.
Sam, both. I have no compromises in my life. I want both.
All right. So that is the 2023 Lexus RX500h F Sport, which now recognizes me when I speak to it and mostly does the right things.
Woohoo!
So
thank you for being a friend, Lexus.
All right. So let's talk about some of the stuff that happened this week. Let's start with the Ram Rampage.
Rampage.
Yeah.
So we've got two compact trucks in the market in the U.S. now with the Maverick and the Hyundai Santa Cruz, and Stellantis has just launched one in Brazil. Is it Brazil or Argentina?
It says built in Brazil.
Yeah, okay. So it's launching in Brazil. Currently, nothing announced for North America. But when I spoke to Mike Koval at the New York Auto Show, he kind of hinted that there'd be something, smaller trucks coming to the Ram lineup in North America in the not so distant future.
Okay.
What do you think of the Rampage?
I like the idea of it. I like the idea of the small truck coming to the ramp because they don't have anything.
Is it bigger, smaller, or well, I guess it's not smaller. Is it bigger or the same size as a Maverick?
I think it's roughly in the same ballpark.
Okay, because it's hard to tell from the photos. Like
built on the same
how big is this?
As the Denali and Hornet.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's based on the same platform as the Denali and Hornet. I mean, that doesn't mean it's got the same wheelbase,
right?
Yeah.
But it could be this, in the same. I think it looks like it's in the same ballpark, and I think it is. And in Brazil, there's 2 engine options. There's a 2-liter turbo diesel, and also the 2-liter Hurricane 4, the global 4-cylinder that Stellantis has been rolling out for several years now in a lot of their vehicles. You find it in the Wrangler. It's the same engine that's in the Denali and Hornet, and a whole bunch of other vehicles. So let's see if Brazil.
I mean, I don't know if it's up to how these prices would translate to the U.S. market, because the turbo diesel starts at $50,000.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't.
But that's a 1-to-1 to price from Brazil, which is a completely different market. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about the pricing in this article, because it's clearly not going to be relevant.
Right, it's not going to be our pricing
to what we get.
Yeah.
I would get, presumably if they sell this here, if they offer this thing here, it will be priced, comparable to what you get with the Maverick and the Santa Cruz. So, if you're looking at, the 2-liter turbo versions of either of those, you're looking in the $28,000 starting price range. If they offer, a lower power entry version, it could be closer to, lower 20s. But yeah, I mean, the diesel clearly, is never going to be offered here.
No, that's not going to. Yeah.
But I like the design of this truck.
Yeah.
I think it looks good, and I think it would be really good for them to have a small truck. I mean, their small trucks are popular. They sort of disappeared, and everyone's like, wait, bring those back. And they sort of bring them back and introduce new ones. It's like, wait, the public likes these. Like, not everybody needs an F-250, thank you very much. Some people want something a little bit smaller. So I think it'd be a great idea for them to introduce it. And I think it looks good. I mean, it still looks like it has the Ram look to it,
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a baby Ram 1500.
It literally just went whoosh, and you like, honey, I shrunk the truck. Like, it's just a little bit smaller. Yeah, I think it looks great.
Yeah. And who knows? I mean, maybe, if they offer it here, since it's based on the platform of the Hornet and Denali, could be a plug-in hybrid.
Can
you imagine this thing, with a 30-mile, electric range from a plug-in hybrid?
Just drive it around.
That'd be pretty cool. People would be excited about that. That'd be a big deal.
Use at the end of the world, as long as you don't need to go 30 miles.
Big deal.
You drive around with the little tiny refinery in the back seat or in the bed.
Little refinery, little teeny tiny one.
You gotta
just
make some gas.
Keep you going.
If it has a power supply, you can have a little power supply that makes your gas.
You could have it all in one system, all built into the one truck. See, you got this figured out.
You don't have to worry about Master Blaster at all.
I think Stellantis needs to bring this to the U.S. market sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I think they should. They probably should. Yeah, because
do it.
They need to do it.
All right. Next up, you were just in Korea with Kia.
I was in Korea.
You were.
Did they spill any beans about an electric Kia Stinger replacement?
I can say they did not do that.
Okay. Bummer.
Well.
Oh, he has to think about it. So maybe they kind of did, but maybe they kind. Let's read things into exactly what Robbie's saying.
No, they didn't. No, I think it was just a conversation I was having. It had nothing to do with the Stinger. It was just about performance. There you go. Well, but it wasn't specifically about the Stinger, but it was about how they brought the GT to the market.
It would certainly it would be great for them to bring back something like the Stinger as an EV. I think there's I believe that Genesis is going to do an electric version of the G70, so they could use that platform, but more likely this would probably be on their on their next generation platform that Hyundai's just been talking about. And they've certainly got, the electric powertrains that could be, a suitable fit for a car like this. And the Jalopnik article talks about 604 horsepower, which is actually more than what you get in the EV6 GT today.
Mm-hmm. That would be cool. I mean, it would be nice to have a replacement. They'll do something. No
eventually. One bought the Stinger. That's the problem.
Because no one thinks about Kia as being a fun little performance car.
I was the last journalist to drive the Stinger, I think, and it was outstanding. And then it went away, and now I'm sad.
I just remember being so excited when that came out because it was such a fun car, and it felt like there were going to be such amazing things. I guess Kia has great cars, but they didn't go that direction, Yeah. But it was too much performance focus for a brand that people don't think of as performance, maybe.
Maybe with the GT. Well, with the EV6 GT out and people talking about it.
I think that did what they in terms of reputation, what they thought the Stinger would do.
Yeah, so maybe the Stinger, a post EV6 GT Stinger would be a pretty good.
Right, if they did it now, maybe the Stinger would have been received entirely differently.
Yeah. Stinger,
do a Stinger.
And, Hyundai is doing an N version of the Ioniq 6 and also the Ioniq 5. In fact, I think the Ioniq 5N is going to be officially unveiled at the Goodwood Festival of Speed in a few weeks. And they've been testing it at the Nürburgring. And apparently sounds like it's going to be pretty cool. Even better than the EV6 GT. So we'll see, if they take that hardware and put it into, a sleeker sedan, kind of like the Stinger. I think that would be a lot of fun. I could go for that.
What they're going to do is every Hyundai or Kia that comes out is a little bit better than the one before.
Mm-hmm.
So the EV6 or the Ioniq 5 N would be better than EV6 GT, but the Stinger would be better than the Ioniq 5N, and then blah, 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 and then so on and so forth, until the end of time, until their EVs go back in time.
Yeah, until it all comes back full circle. Start driving internal combustion again.
Yeah, exactly. It all goes back.
All right. All right. Rivian this week announced that they too will follow Ford and GM and adopt the NACS charging connector. Which is the connector formerly known as the Tesla charging connector. And they're starting sometime early next year. They will have a software update that enables the Rivians to charge at superchargers once an adapter becomes available. And then they also announced their acquisition of what was the name of the company? Eternio, a Swedish mapping company. And probably none of you have ever heard of Eternio.
I have not.
But you have probably heard of one of their main products, a better route planner.
Dun, dun, dun. The thing I told Volkswagen to buy like 5 years ago.
If only Volkswagen listened to you, Robbie.
Someone should have bought it. I felt like Volkswagen should have bought it. And then Rivian's like, nope.
None of you guys are going to do it.
We'll do it.
Yeah, we'll buy it.
And the irony is that one of the Volkswagen group PR people told me to use a better route planner once while driving their vehicle over a long trip. They're like, that was the first time I'd heard of it. They're like, oh yeah, there's this app. It's really cool. You can put in like state of charge, the car, and it'll tell you where to stop along your way. And I was like, oh, this is genius. And now I use it in my car.
And now you'll have it in your Rivian because
apparently they're gonna keep working on it for other. What I think that the term they use is other EV drivers.
Yeah, they're gonna keep the standalone app that exists today, but also integrate the same stuff directly into the nav system in Rivians, which will be a big help. And so, Robbie, I think you've probably used it more than any of us. Mm-hmm. Explain a little bit more, exactly for those that haven't used a better route planner, how, exactly how it works and what you can do with it.
So it works essentially the same way that Tesla's route planner works. You get the app and you put in the car you're driving. So whatever EV you're driving, you put it in, and then you tell it your state of charge at the beginning of your trip. and then how much charge you want at the end, and then it does calculations, and then it tells you along your route where to stop and for how long, just like the Tesla system, except you have to do those little extra steps. But I did find out this weekend that you can get an OBD connector, like a BLE, like a Bluetooth low energy connector. So it'll tell the
They'll
app.
pair that with your phone.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
it'll tell the app what your state of charge is, so
nice.
you don't even have to put the thing in. I found this out from Antoine Goodwin over at CNET. Yeah, so you can actually use that to tell your phone what your vehicle state of charge, and it tells a better route planner, and then a better route planner, you don't have to put anything in because it knows your car, it knows your state of charge. So all the things again that the Tesla system sort of does, you can do with this system. So it's pretty cool. But the biggest downside is that it is clearly designed by engineers. So sometimes
the interface is a little.
The interface is very engineering.
Opaque.
Engineering. That's scary. Oh God, I don't want anything to do with that.
And some of the there's like a lot of like features and like little things. They're clearly only an engineer would use. Like your average person, like, why do I need this? What is all this stuff? So no, but no, I really, it's really great for again, if you have a car or an EV that doesn't have any sort of route planning, like our Hyundai, our Kona Electric, it doesn't even have navigation because they're just like, you're just gonna plug your phone in. So you could use it with that. And so yeah, no, it is a good system, which I was surprised that no one had snatched up until now, because I was always thinking like someone's just gonna buy this and just implement it, and then they don't have to do all the work because someone else has already done it, and all they got, they just got to make a few little changes here and there in order to put it into their system, and then I was sort of concerned that like once someone buys it, everyone else who uses this app, which if you use it with CarPlay or Android Auto, you pay like $4 a month, but if you just use it on your phone, it's free. But when that happens, they're gonna like kill the app. It's gonna be exclusive to this automaker. But it looks like that's not the case. So it's sort of the best of both worlds. So they're gonna have it's gonna be in the Rivian, which is good for them because that means they have money from Rivian. But it also means that they're gonna have money for development for other for the app itself. So the app
they can hire a designer or two, to
yeah. They can hire the person who made the little like was it Bigfoot or Sasquatch or whatever little animal they have in the Rivians that's wearing like a headband and sweats or whatever. Yeah, there's a whole thing. Anyway, so they can hire designers to like sort of like clean up the app a bit so it's easier for regular people to use. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of a better route planner. And I'm glad that they finally got purchased. It just seemed like, man, these folks, they made this really cool thing and no one seems to know about it. So
well, I think what's one of the things that's cool about
what
it.
the heck is that? No, wait, now I have Googled. What is that? It looks like a creature from like Sesame Street. Is it a Sasquatch?
It's supposed to be like a Sasquatch or a Yeti. I mean, what else would it be?
With a fan and a headband, like he's been working out?
Yeah, everybody.
Sasquatch. I mean, in this image, there's a dog sitting in the front seat of the car, looking at the camera like, what the heck is that on the screen in front of me?
Well, they have a dog mode.
It's Gary the Gear Guard.
Yeah, it's Gary the Gear Guard. So Rivian's also the only company that had just essentially copied Tesla and put in the dog mode, which everyone should do that, because sometimes you have your dogs in the car and you're like, okay, I just need to run to the store really quick, but I cannot just leave my dog in the car especially if you live in a warm environment. Because as soon as I turn the car, because when I drive around to do video, we have to turn the air conditioning off in order to do in-car stand-ups while we're driving. And it gets really hot in the car really quickly. Yeah. So if it's a hot day and you're not even moving, you don't leave your dog in the car like that. But if you had a little air conditioning thing that you turn the car off but the AC stays on, and it said a little thing, hey, the AC is on so my dog doesn't, get heat exhaustion. That's a genius move.
That would be a genius move.
And
they should all have that.
Yeah, Rivian added it. I mean, Subaru should have it, really.
Yeah.
Come on,
of
Subaru.
all the brands, Subaru, come on.
I think what's cool about what a better route planner does, is you put in your destination. If there might be multiple charging stops, it'll tell you it can calculate based on the vehicle that you've entered and your initial state of charge, where should you stop, and not just where should you stop, but also how long should you stay there in order. And so you might actually have multiple stops, but shorter stops and it'll drive you down to perhaps a lower state of charge so you can get maximum charging speed. So your overall trip length can be as short as possible. Or you can also select, most efficient charging or most efficient route. But you might stop, at charger number one, for when you get to 10% state of charge, for 15 minutes, and then stop 100 miles later, for 20 minutes or 7 minutes, or however long, and the overall accumulated time will be less. And that's one of the really cool things that, especially for longer trips, where a better route planner really helps. And actually, this is something that, this is part of GM's rationale for dropping CarPlay and Android Auto support, is they're building that into the Google Maps implementation in their infotainment system in their electric vehicles. So they're going to supposedly have the same kind of capability built right in as well.
Yeah, like who has Google? Polestar and Volvo now have it with Google Map implementation. Mm-hmm. The Hummer EV has it because it has Android Auto Google Map implementation. So everyone's getting there. They should have gotten there a lot quicker, and it would have been a lot quicker if they had just purchased a better route planner.
Yeah.
Oh, and Ford has it with Apple Maps.
Okay.
Which I'm sure was a huge pain in the butt because Apple's really difficult to deal with.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of why GM is not doing it. They're just doing it internally. All right. So with more and more automakers now jumping on the NACS bandwagon. And in fact, I think Hyundai earlier this week, showed off some stuff in Korea for their next generation EV platform, and they did indicate that they are looking at adopting NACS for that new platform as well. So they probably won't change over their current EGMP stuff, but the new stuff may switch over to NACS. So Texas was the first state, and now just on Friday, Washington announced that any charge station operators that want to get funding through the state will also have to, in addition to the CCS, will also have to include NACS connectors on there. And I think that this is the Federal Highway Administration is the one that is the agency that administers the NEVI program. It's the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program with the $7.5 billion of federal funding. That when they published their rules earlier this year, they specified that all, the chargers that get federal funding have to be available to the public and have to include the CCS charging connector. I think they need to make a change right now and add NACS as well, include both, in order to get that funding, because otherwise, there's going to be chargers out there that don't have NACS, that are publicly funded. There's going to be more and more EVs with NACS increasingly than CCS over the next several years. And I think they just need to go ahead and make the change now. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I talked to you guys a little bit about before. This whole okay, now we're doing this. It reminds me of that Black Mirror episode Nosedive. Mm-hmm. Where the main character she loses her clout, her social media clout, so she can't fly a plane. So because her social media clout is so low, she has to rent a car, but the car she rents is old. And so when she runs out of juice, she goes to a charging station, and it's not the compatible charging station. So we're gonna have, we have Chatamo, which is, is really in Japan, and it's still sort of out there because of Nissan Leafs and Mitsubishi, and then they have CCS, and now you have the new Tesla standard. And so, yeah, at some point in the future, you're gonna rent an old car, and you're gonna go to a space station. You're just gonna be hosed.
Yeah, I mean, there's still going to be CCS equipped vehicles on the road well into the 2030s, so we can't just completely abandon that yet. But I think my guess is by the end of the year, pretty much every automaker will have announced that they're going to adopt NACS. in North America.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. We're just gonna, and that's the other reason. We're leasing our EV, and one of us because battery technology keeps getting better. Now I feel like you just lease the EV because of that, and because of the ever changing charging. Like, what are you gonna have? I don't know. I bought a blah blah. I bought a Chatamo car 10 years ago now.
And now it's no good.
Well, and almost all of the charger manufacturers over the last several weeks have announced that we are going to offer chargers with NACS or both NACS and CCS, and in most cases they're also going to offer retrofit kits for existing CCS chargers to either add or replace the connectors with NACS connectors. So, and also, the major charge network operators, EVgo, including EVgo, ChargePoint, and Blink, have all said that they're going to start putting in NACS connectors. The only one that hasn't said anything yet,
the only holdout,
is Electrify America.
Well, Pablo DC, when asked about this at the ID Buzz unveiling in Huntington Beach, asked about the Tesla charging. He was like, no. Essentially, his reply was like, no, that's not. He's
the head of VW Group of America. Right?
Yeah, North America's. Yeah. So well, I mean, I think it was just Ford. I think at that point, I don't think it was GM.
Yeah, GM had not announced yet, and neither had Tesla.
So now, once Hyundai, the Hyundai group goes, then Ford's. I mean, I'm sorry, Volkswagen. The Volkswagen group's going to be like, well, okay, fine.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get at the end of the day, as long as you can get where you want to go as an EV driver, that's really. I mean, there's Tesla charging stations everywhere. They're just they're like the plague. They're like, everywhere I go, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that was there. The Tesla Start charging station. And again, I'm very lucky because I live in Northern California. You can't swing a stick without hitting a charging station where I live. But for the rest of the country, I mean, it's really Tesla or nothing.
Yeah, and
go anywhere.
Even with Tesla though, I mean, there's still some significant gaps. Roman Micah just did a drive back from Florida back to Colorado in a Model 3, and they posted a video. Took him 2.5 days, and it was he was a little grumpy, about the charging situation, even for Tesla, and it's much better than for CCS chargers. So.
Yeah.
To make Roman grumpy, you got to be messing up.
Yeah.
Roman's just like the nicest guy. He and Tommy are just like the nicest people.
They are super nice and super chill.
If you're making them grumpy, then we're failing.
You've done things wrong.
We're clearly failing.
All right. Well, we got one thing left here, and that is the Chevy Silverado EV.
What?
Yeah. Apparently it's a real thing now. We first saw it. I went to a backgrounder for it back in December of 2021, before Christmas, a few weeks before CES, where it was supposed to be unveiled. And then shortly after that backgrounder, Omicron started blowing up and everybody canceled their plans to go to CES. So GM did a virtual unveil of the Silverado EV, and they've had it at the auto shows over the last 18 months. But now they are finally almost ready to start shipping the work truck version of the Silverado EV to fleet customers. Consumers won't be able to get their hands on it till fourth quarter this year with the high-end RST version, and consumers will also be able to buy the work truck if they want as well. I went to an event a couple days ago here near Ann Arbor, and spent some time with some of the subject matter experts, including Nicole Kratz, the chief engineer, and I will have an interview with her a little later on here. But got our first opportunity to get behind the wheel of the Silverado EV, and we learned more about it as well. And actually, earlier in the week, I went to a place here in Livonia, Michigan called CareSoft. It's a company that they're a lot like Monroe and Associates. They do teardowns and benchmarking and do work for a lot of different companies. And they gave us a tour of their facilities, and we saw a bunch of vehicles that had, especially a bunch of EVs that they had done teardowns of, and got a chance to compare things like the batteries. When they do a teardown, they completely take it apart. So you had the frames of all these vehicles and the bodies and the batteries and the motors and everything else. One of the things that was interesting there is they have done teardowns of the F-150 Lightning, the Rivian R1T, the Hummer EV pickup, and also the BYD Pao, which is a Chinese market electric pickup truck. And of those 4 electric pickup trucks, only one is not actually a body on frame, which I did not realize before and hasn't really been talked about. And that's the Hummer. So, the others, they all have a body on frame. A body on frame is effectively a skateboard chassis, and, always has been. So you've got, with a gas engine, you've got the gas engine and the transmission and the driveline are all installed in there, and the suspension, it's all attached to the frame. And then you stick a cab and a bed on top there. And the F-150 Lightning is basically the same thing, except with electric motors and a battery. The Rivian uses a unitized cab and bed, so it's all one structure, but it's still sitting on a frame with the battery pack in between the frame rails. The Hummer, on the other hand, does not have a separate frame. Because when they first gave us previews of the Ultium stuff a couple of years ago, they showed us of what looked like a traditional truck frame with the motors and the air suspension from the Hummer and the gigantic battery pack. But that's not actually what they built. With the Hummer body, and the same thing is true for the Silverado and the Sierra, and presumably for the upcoming Escalade IQ. There are what are effectively the frame rails, but they're actually part of the body structure. So the part of the reason why the Silverado went to this kind of avalanche style body with the bed and the cab attached to one another, so it's all one big structure, is because there's no separate frame. The frame rails run along the outer perimeter of that body structure, and then the battery pack is bolted in between those frame rails. So the frame rails provide side intrusion protection for crash, but then the battery pack is bolted up to the bottom of that, and it becomes part of the overall structure of the vehicle to make the whole thing stiffer. And whereas you look at most other EVs, the battery pack case is usually made of a combination of composite and aluminum materials to try to reduce the weight. The battery pack of the Hummer and also of the Silverado EV is a big, giant steel case. And, we've talked about the weight of the Hummer before. The curb weight of the Hummer is like 9,200 pounds. And one of the things that we talked about with Nicole Kratz is when they start launching versions of the Silverado EV with less range, it's not actually going to use a smaller pack. They're using the same pack case. They're just populating it with fewer modules. So right now it's got 2 layers of 12 modules each, so 24 battery modules altogether. They're just going to put fewer modules in that same case because that case is part of the structure of the vehicle. So on the Silverado, one of the things they talked about when they first previewed it is because it's not adapted from their gas trucks, they were able to do more stuff, make some changes that Ford obviously couldn't do with the Lightning. Like, for example, they moved the front bulkhead forward several inches and down. So the cowl is moved forward and down. And they moved the whole cab forward as well by several inches. And what that did is it allowed them to have a longer bed. And because there's no separation between the cab and the bed, there's just the steel wall back there, or on some versions, they'll have a midgate. You don't have the physical air gap between the cab and the bed. So basically that gave them an extra 6 inches of bed length with the tailgate closed compared to the F-150, and it's actually 17 inches longer bed than the Rivian. The cab itself, they talked a lot about, how, being an EV, it doesn't have a transmission tunnel and things like that. Well, actually, if you look at any full-size pickup today, because they sit up so high and the cab sits above, the transmission sits inside the frame perimeter. They all have flat floors. None of them have a transmission tunnel. So you haven't actually gained anything there. And if you look at the dimensions that they've published of the cab of the Silverado EV versus a gas Silverado or an F-150 or a Ram, they're all almost identical. So you haven't actually gained any space. What you do gain, though, is because they've moved it all forward and the cowl is lower, is forward visibility.
Forward visibility. See, the cowl lower. See, again, I just keep telling for years, they're like, well, it's the same size as before. Yeah, but they made a design decision to make that cowl so tall and at a right angle that you're losing visibility. So adding visibility in a truck is a huge win for pedestrians.
It's a huge win
for drivers, because you can't, like every time you're in a drive-through, it's always the big truck that's like a car and a length behind the car in front of it.
Because you can't tell. You can't tell how close you are. You're like, I don't want to pop that car. I could be 5 feet away or 5 inches, and I don't know.
I don't know because my truck is
truck is gigantic.
Someone at an automaker decided the design should be a right angle where I can't see anything at the front of my vehicle.
Yeah. So when you get in the Silverado EV, get behind the wheel, you immediately notice that, it's obviously still a
tall,
big ass truck. You can see a lot closer in front of you than you can in any gas truck or the Lightning for that matter. Yeah. And it's certainly way better than the Hummer, which has, this tiny short vertical windshield and, ginormous hood and everything. So forward visibility is much, much improved with the Silverado EV. Of course, that means that it also has a smaller frunk than the F-150. The Lightning is a 14 cubic front trunk. It's only about 10.5, which is still good. I mean, you still have plenty of room in there for tools and stuff, but it is smaller than the Lightning.
How much shrimp would you be able to add it to it?
Not enough.
Not enough, apparently. Yeah. So even with all this, designed as an EV, supposedly optimized as an EV, do you want to take a guess at what the curb weight of the Silverado EV work truck is?
Oh my God,
8,000 pounds.
I'm going to go higher. I was going to say 8,500. You changed it. I was going to go 8,500.
You said 8,000. Yeah, you got to let Nicole have 8,500.
I was going to go 8,500, and then you start to change. I got 8,500.
Okay.
I'm probably still not going to win, Robbie, but I got 85.
You can say 8,001.
No, I went to 8,500.
It's 8,568 pounds for the work truck.
Oh my. Okay.
And this work truck.
This is
work truck. Jeez.
So this doesn't have all the luxury features. It doesn't have air spring suspension. It doesn't have 4-wheel steering. It doesn't have a mid gate. 8,568 for the curb weight of the Silverado EV work truck, which is about, let's see, it's like almost 1,700 pounds more than a fully loaded Lightning Platinum. And compared to a Lightning Pro with the extended range battery, or actually compared to a Lightning Pro with the standard battery, it's about 2,600 pounds more.
What are they doing over there?
I don't know.
Really, what are they just?
Stop.
Did they not know how much this destroys? This is the efficiency. Come on.
Come on. The official EPA range rating though for this truck is 450 miles.
Yeah, but the battery's like 200 and something kilowatts, right?
Yeah, it's over 200 kilowatt hours.
Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean they've done it, but it's the exact same battery that's in the Hummer. And the Hummer is only 329 miles. But, this truck has much better aerodynamics than the Hummer. The Hummer has a drag coefficient of 0.5. The Silverado EV is 0.331.
Oh, yeah,
and the Lightning is 0.44. So it's way better aero. It's also, compared to the Hummer, it's several inches narrower. And it's also instead of riding on those 35-inch all-terrain tires, it's on lower rolling resistance all-season tires. So it's a much better, much more efficient than the Hummer. Still not particularly efficient as EV
if you put
goes.
200 kilowatts and 400 miles, you're getting two miles per kilowatt hour. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, it was on the short
rough.
drive we did. It was showing about 1.8. But I mean, we only literally had like 20 minutes behind the wheel. It was like a short loop, in an area southwest of Ann Arbor. On the work truck, they're all like the Lightning. They're all dual motor. There's no single motor version of it. There's no rear drive version of it. So single motor, but that's 510 horsepower, 615 foot-pounds of torque, I think, which is quite a bit less than the Lightning. And it's heavier. So, again, not, it doesn't feel as quick off the line. It's still plenty quick, but you can tell, I did I brought it to a stop and, floored it, and it does not feel as quick as the Lightning does. But I mean, Lightning goes 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. You don't need to be able to do that in a big truck.
Need to, but you don't need to.
It's still plenty. It's still plenty quick.
Like, Watts the Freedom on a Hummer is just dumb. I haven't driven both of the SUV and the truck. I'm like, this is not something this vehicle should have.
Yeah,
it just
I agree.
It's
well, and in the work truck, I don't think they have the Watts to Freedom or it's what is it? It's the WOW mode on the Chevys. I forget, wide open something. Wide open
wonder.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Anyway, the RST, the Silverado RST that's coming in Q4, it will have that WOW mode. The work truck doesn't get that, and it doesn't need it.
You don't need this.
One of the downsides of that weight, though, is they wanted to keep this as a Class 2B truck, so it's technically light duty. The GVW is 9,000. The gross vehicle weight rating is 9,990 pounds. So that means it's only got 1,400 pounds of payload capability. Versus, the Lightning, which depending on what configuration you get, can be as much as 2,200 pounds. There is going to be in the fall a version of the work truck with fewer battery modules populated, a 350 mile range, which is still more than the longest range on the Lightning. And that one will, because they've put fewer battery modules in there, it'll have a lighter curb weight. So it should be able to accommodate more. It'll probably get closer to 2,000 pounds of payload, maybe even beat the 2,200 of the Lightning. One thing that I think was a good choice in this vehicle is the Silverado, rather than because it's not sharing stuff with the gas trucks, it doesn't have the center console shifter. It's got a column mounted shifter, and it's just an electronic switch like you find in a lot of other EVs. So that leaves the center console open. So you've got a lot of storage cubbies in the center console, like just a tremendous amount of storage to put stuff. It doesn't have a cookie surface.
Forget it. I'm out.
We call it a burrito surface here in this.
Okay.
Burrito surface. Okay, yeah. You're wrong. It's a cookie surface, but okay. Fine.
Well, it depends on what part of the country. It's like soda and
cookies
pop.
are everywhere.
Yeah.
Cookies are everywhere. What else? You could call them biscuits if you want to be in England, but cookies are biscuit surface.
I think the importance of cookies is lower here because we got burritos.
We have burritos, but cookies are the cookies are more important.
I mean,
cookies are more important everywhere. Everybody loves
and air quotes.
Well, yes, but everybody loves cookies. There are cookies, no air quotes needed, no matter where you roam. They're universal.
Burrito. Anyway, the burrito tray is gone.
The tray of undetermined usage.
Now we're just arguing about food as opposed to the fact that it doesn't have a workspace.
Yes. I actually think that workspace thing is actually really cool. I think it's a great idea, honestly, just as a workspace.
I've used it with my laptop before, and it worked really nice.
Yep.
So the work truck has an 8-inch digital cluster in front of the driver, 11-inch center touchscreen. Interesting detail. When GM announced, when they briefed me that they were taking out smartphone projection, they said, it's not going to be on any of the new EVs, including the Silverado EV. Well, the Silverado EV work truck still has that in there. So it's got the Android Auto based system, infotainment system, and it still has support for the CarPlay and Android Auto in there. So
it's probably already baked in before they made the decision. They're like, well,
yeah.
Well, I'll be curious to see if they take it out at some point.
In the gallery, you can actually see the CarPlay logo in the top right-hand corner.
Oh, okay.
That's funny.
Whoops.
Oopsie daisy.
So, I think, the version, the launch version, they're building them now. They're in low volume initial production. They hope to start deliveries soon. They said they wouldn't be pinned down to a specific date, but probably sometime in July they'll start shipping them to fleets. They've got orders from 350 fleets that they're going to prioritize initially, and then later in the fall start consumer deliveries. But the 450 mile range version that they're building initially has a price, including delivery, of about $79,000. And then for the 350 mile range version, it'll be $5,000 cheaper. Otherwise, identical. And then the RST, the high end consumer truck, coming in the fourth quarter, that's going to be $105,000. And then next year they're going to introduce a Trail Boss version as well. So that'll be a more off-road oriented version. We did learn a little bit more about the transition plans for NACS. So obviously right now they're building them with CCS connectors. Sometime probably, they don't have a specific date yet, but probably in 2025 with the model year changeover. So probably for the model year 26, so second half of 2025, they will switch from using CCS connectors to NACS connectors on there. Next year, the trucks they're building now will get a software update to enable charging from superchargers, and at some point in there they will have an adapter available. They're still working on where they're going to source those from, who's going to manufacture them. And they haven't made decisions yet, or at least nothing that they're willing to talk about yet, as far as the pricing, whether they're going to give those adapters to customers or they'll have to pay for them. So they're still working out all those details.
Dun, dun, dun.
We'll see.
Yeah.
No cookie/burrito table though, so Nicole and I are out.
We're out. Either way, Robbie and I, there is not a food surface for whatever food we like best. Done.
Sorry, Chevy.
Sorry, Chevy, but you need a food surface. We can agree on food surface. Can we agree on food surface, Roberto?
Yeah.
Food surface.
Okay, food surface.
Okay.
Regional food surface area.
Regional food surface area.
All right. So I had a chance to chat with Nicole Kratz, the chief engineer on the Silverado EV, and we talked about a variety of stuff around this truck, and she provides some more detail on some of the things that they've changed relative to the Hummer, it's also got all the offboard power stuff and bidirectional charging stuff that you'll find on a certain other electric pickup truck. So you get 10.2 kilowatts of offboard power. And she said when we had our big ice storm earlier this year, back in March, and everybody lost their power, she said she ran her house, she's been driving the Silverado EV for about a year now, and she's put about 10,000 miles on hers. And she said she used it for a couple of days to power all the stuff in her house while the power was out. So definitely worked for her. So I'm going to drop that in here. So this is Nicole Kratz, chief engineer on the Silverado EV. Yeah, so just want to talk a little bit about the Silverado EV work truck for wheel bearings. So let's start off. I mean, we've talked about this before, but kind of give me an overview of kind of what was the thinking, in creating this truck. You've obviously taken a very different approach from Ford, and what was the kind of the overall rationale and the direction you've taken with this truck in terms of its design, architecture, range, and so on?
So I think the first thing is strategically, we need an EV architecture for a full-size truck that will stand the test of time. And doing a full-size pickup truck off of a body-on-frame architecture does not allow you to optimize the design of the truck for an EV usage. So you're going to carry legacy in poor designs because you're not using a transmission, you've got a transmission tunnel. Because you're not using an engine, your frame rails are wide in the front and you've got worse steering circles. And so strategically, we wanted to lead the market in volume in full-size EV pickup trucks. The only way to do that was to develop a ground-up vehicle. We had to look at how we could optimize steering circles because we're only putting motors, electric motors in the front rather than combustion motors. We don't have a transmission tunnel, we don't have exhaust, they're not underneath the floor, and so the floor can be flat. We can reconfigure the whole truck because we don't have an engine to fit into that front end, and so we can move that IP forward. We can lower the cowl and have better forward visibility because the engine height. All of these things are perhaps nuances to the big stories of 450 miles and 10,000 pounds of towing and 100 miles and 10 minutes of fast charging. Those are the big things that bring customers to us first because we're clearly the best in the EV segment. But the small things are what everyone will learn to appreciate as they are owning the vehicle. And the small things are, I can see better, I've got more room, I've got more space to put my stuff, I can turn into a parking spot and it's easy. I'm not back and forth, as you know, with the full-size truck.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real challenge,
right?
Parking these things.
This is my truck sitting right here. It's got 10,000 miles on it, and I never have to back and forth into a parking spot ever again now. And it doesn't even have rear steer. And so all of these opportunities, I mean, we know our full-size truck customers. We are full-size truck drivers on my team. And the first time I ever came to EVs was on this product. So I came from an ICE full-size truck customer experience to an EV customer experience. And so it was number one, had to be a truck. Everything that I do with my pickup truck better be able to be done on an EV because the price of entry is it's still a full-size pickup truck. Then what can we get from an EV? Instantaneous torque, no lag in performance, off the line, just ready to go and peppy. Great towing, great energy usage. I can take all this battery power and powered my house, by the way, in the ice storm that we had a couple months ago for a couple of days, and it was easy and it wasn't loud and there wasn't all this activity around my house.
Didn't have to refill the gas tank every 12 hours.
And I unplugged it. I had only lost like 5 or 10% charge, and I was still able to go on my way and still get to work. It wasn't like I was at 0% charge and now I'm stuck at home without power and I don't. So this 450 mile pack is not just about driving 450 miles. It's about giving you energy for anything that you need, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, we just took a short drive in this thing.
What'd you think?
It's very impressive. Particularly, you mentioned visibility is a big thing.
Yeah.
And that, with the growth in size of full-size trucks and utilities in the last 15, 20 years, has become a real challenge.
Yep.
Looking out and seeing what's in front of you.
Yeah.
And there, you can really tell the difference. Because you've moved the cowl forward and down.
Yep.
In this thing. It does make a huge difference in terms of forward visibility. Certainly, plenty of room inside there. I think one thing that's interesting is a lot of conversation around EVs, skateboard platforms. Mm-hmm. And this is not a skateboard platform. You've gone a completely different direction with this. And even the Rivian, which is also a unibody truck, but it's still sitting on a frame. And there's no frame in this.
No, there's no frame. So we actually like to talk about this as a new kind of architecture, body architecture that we've created. So the battery pack itself is part of the structure of the truck. It has safety implications with it in terms of crash worthiness for side impacts, for front impacts. It's part of the body structure. It's part of the ride and handling feel. So you guys, when you drove, felt some really amazing drive dynamics, a very solid feeling truck connected to the road. It's all part of the structure. It bolts up to a body. Now, it doesn't extend like a frame would on a traditional body on frame pickup truck. So we put structure unibody-ish structure into the truck bed and into the front rails in the front of the vehicle where the battery structure isn't. And so we really do call this a new type of body architecture where we can bolt up the battery structure. It becomes part of the truck. It integrates with the truck. And when we want lower range vehicles, which we know are price points and people will want, all we're doing is taking the cells and the modules out of the battery. We're not changing the dimensions of that pack.
The battery case itself remains the same.
The case is always the same. And so if you think about this in terms of complexity and modularity and usability, like, it's awesome. It's a flexible architecture that you can go all the way down to a 250 mile range pack if you wanted to, and you're just pulling cells out and you're balancing center of gravity, but you're just pulling stuff out and the structure is still there.
And is that why the battery case itself is made of steel as opposed to
Absolutely.
aluminum or composites like you find on a lot of other EVs?
I mean, we're going to protect the battery and we're going to protect our people.
Yeah.
And protecting our people from side pulls, whether it's an ICE or an EV, there's certain crash criteria that we want to meet, and so that being steel helps with that. And then of course making sure that the least amount of intrusion into a battery wherever you're in an accident is also primary for us, and that's why that's a steel pack.
So one of the things, there's been some specs that have changed since the truck was originally announced almost a year and a half ago. You've got more range now. You're up to 450 miles roughly combined range, which is very impressive for a truck this size, and certainly a lot more than what you get from any other currently available
over 120
electric.
miles more than the next best.
So
if I was counting.
Yeah. The Hummer, which is a little bit shorter but wider, a little bit heavier, compared to this. That's only about 329, I think, miles. So what are some of the things that allow the Silverado to have so much more range compared to both the Hummer as well as other competing electric pickup trucks?
I think it's efficiency fully integrated throughout the truck. And the first thing is the narrow stance and the coefficient of drag. We've got one of the lowest coefficient of drags. I think it is the lowest coefficient of drag in a full-size truck at 0.331. And so the Hummer is a very square front end, very much a super truck, Hummer-like looking truck. And so it's at a disadvantage from an aerodynamics perspective for sure. It's a great truck, by the way, with 330 miles, and I've been able to even get more than that out of that truck. And so we're always designing efficiencies into our trucks. The Ultium battery pack is a shared pack with our Hummer, but we have year-over-year changes, and so we've done some things in the Silverado that are also going to cast into the Hummer, and so customers will get the benefit of constantly improving calibrations, efficiencies, and that Ultium battery pack structure gets into all of our battery electric trucks, not just the Silverado EV. And then there's systems inside of the truck that we've optimized with our HVAC system. Most of the electrical architecture in this truck is not shared with our Hummer, and so we were able to do some things differently than what we had with the Hummer. And so all of those efficiencies, I don't want to talk about them in specifics, but HVAC, chassis controls, riding, like every single thing that touches the road. It's not an off-road truck in terms of the super truck of the Hummer, and so the rolling resistance of these tires are optimized for driving performance and for braking and for cornering and for range and efficiency. So when you look throughout the truck, it's really been focused on a mainstream full-size truck that has great efficiencies and doesn't give any performance up.
So is this, you mentioned the electrical architecture, is this a next generation or a next iteration up from the VIP architecture that's launched on Hummer and Lyric last year?
Yeah, so the software-defined vehicle that General Motors has talked about, this is one of the early stages of that endeavor, and so it's not the same electrical architecture as the Hummer started with.
So presumably this will have at least some capability to do over-the-air software upgrades,
Absolutely.
Add new features and capabilities over the life of the vehicle?
There's a whole team, and I'm not the expert on what they are, but I will tell you that I know there's a whole team working on in-market enhancements, opportunities for updates. We absolutely use our over-the-air updates to give the customer an improved experience over time with all the calibrations, and then they'll have opportunities to purchase apps and features as well in the vehicle. And yes, this is one of the starts of that.
And one of those features that's coming, which will presumably be, at least part of it will be through an OTA update, is support for the Tesla supercharging network next year, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be OTA. Well, I mean, it'll be OTA'd from the production truck because, of course, all the trucks will end up there.
Right, the trucks that are built now up until that point.
Yeah. A lot of the work that we're doing right now is to try to get the charging network capability on the Tesla superchargers through the My Chevrolet app. And so there'll be a few things that'll need to be OTA'd into the truck itself with the calibration activity on the battery to the charger. But in reality, the Chevy app is where we're going to have the customer seamless experience to go up to a Tesla charge station and be able to charge their vehicle.
Okay. And then, of course, being in competition with some very important other companies in your space.
Like who?
Well,
I'm just kidding. You don't have to say it.
Ford. It's Ford. Okay.
We just so happen to maybe know.
Down
the road.
I mean, competition is a good thing. I mean,
absolutely.
All three companies, Ford, GM, Ram, you're always pushing each other forward.
We are.
And so you've got a lot of the features that people have really liked about that other truck. You've found those and even gone beyond some of that with the power power output capabilities. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, so I'll just say that at the time that we're ideating on this truck, we did not know what the Lightning would have.
Okay.
So I didn't put a Lightning on the wall and say, let's make sure we have everything they have plus. I don't mean to say that as if I wouldn't be willing to do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, you always want to know your competition. You always want to be better. You always want to have improved performance and capabilities. But we truly didn't have a roadmap available on what a full-size electric pickup truck would need to be and need to look like, especially for our fleet customers. So that's the first thing. Second thing is we were hell-bent on how can we power our home, how can we power tailgates, what do we do with our pickup trucks today, and what are our pain points? And our pain points were really loud gas generators. And so the team set out and said, all right, well, how are we going to get off-board power? What are we going to do? And we added in this module that is not in any of our other battery electric pickup trucks or battery electric vehicles for that matter. And that module is giving you onboard 7.2 kilowatts of power. And then as well, there's an accessory power bar that plugs into our charge port that gives you an extra 3. So you can get 10.2 of total off-board power, 10.2 kilowatts of total off-board power. And it's powering this evening our taco food truck, our barbecue food truck. If needed, it would run lights. It runs. It's really hard to find 10.2 kilowatts.
You got it hooked up here to all kinds of
You're
tools.
You're barely using, but 10.2 is really important when you want to get to a job site that's got heavy machinery and a home. So think of just construction crews for like homes or warehouses, things where you want to power things up and they don't have the power line in yet. And I've been able to just seamlessly turn my truck on and power my house. And those are the kinds of things that we really think are the opportunities for an EV pickup truck rather than just a pickup truck.
So production is starting. Well, you're in production now, limited production now with the work truck.
Yep.
And delivery starting soon-ish. And then Q4 of this year, retail customers will be able to start getting the RST, right?
Correct, absolutely. So the team is focused on building in the plant at Detroit Hamtramck Factory Zero. We are building our limited production vehicles, making sure we've got quality, execution, supply chain, everything running so that we can continue to deliver to our work truck fleet customers. And at the same time, the team that you guys have seen here today that are super passionate like me, who are driving around in these trucks, they are developing this RST. There's a couple of test trucks around here actually as you drive around, and you can see we're constantly trying to innovate. We want to make things better. The best is yet to come with the RST, and even today I can tell you that we're finding more and more things that we're going to improve on, that we're going to make better, that we just want to be better than where we ever thought we could be. We just have this passion to drive ourselves really hard. And the great thing about this is it can go back into the work truck. If it's a battery efficiency that we find, it can go back into our whole lineup with the Ultium infrastructure. And so we're just
and not
committed.
just in new trucks, but some of it, if it's software-based, even in the trucks that are already in the field.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. All right. Anything else you want to add about the Silverado work truck?
I just think that it's really a truck first and then it's an EV. And I think that people tend to wonder or question whether or not you can really have a capable electric pickup truck. And I'm hoping that what has resonated with you today in the drive is that it's absolutely pickup truck first, and then being an EV, it makes it really more fun, exhilarating, refined, and just awesome.
All right. Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, guys.
All right. And we're back. Before, I've got one more interview that I did a few weeks back with Nimrod Nehushtan from Mobileye, talking about Mobileye's mapping strategy, their road experience management system for mapping, and why it's so important for driver assist and automated driving systems. But before we jump to that, let's say goodbye for this week. Anything else that you guys want to share before we go?
That's it.
All right.
No, I don't got nothing.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you all next
Bye,
time.
everyone.
And here's my
Bye.
conversation with Nimrod Nehushtan from Mobileye. So I guess, why don't we dive right in and maybe give me an overview of what you're going to be talking about later around Ram. Mapping's a big area that's gaining a lot of interest.
Yeah, so I think first of all, the objective is to explain why maps are needed for kind of the next generation of products in the automotive industry. And the way we come, or the approach we have is very similar to how humans are driving. And in the same sense that you're driving much more carefully or comfortably, confidently, driving your daily commute, driving places you've been before, you can anticipate in advance what's coming. When you're driving places that you've never been before, like in a new country, new road conditions, new driving rules, you're much more likely to have, dangerous events or break the rules or whatever it may be. And what we want to achieve is kind of a replica of this memory, or the same benefits.
Or the institutional knowledge of the roads.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, this is dramatic for autonomous driving, but also for driver assist, because this problem of anticipating and properly understanding the driving structure, or the driving rules and the road structure, the geometry of the road, the meaning of different objects in different places in the world, is one of the most complicated problems to generalize well. If you think about traffic lights, for example, which is a very common day-to-day feature that we as humans encounter every day, the traffic light structures vary globally in a very big way. I mean, if you think about Paris versus Detroit versus Israel versus Shanghai, you have many differences that you must understand if you want to be crossing a junction in a safe way. So it's not a small thing. You cannot cross a junction without properly understanding these nuances. So the thing is that if you try to kind of solve this through online sensors, it becomes a very complicated problem that requires a lot of compute, a lot of data, and it's simply something that to date you can hardly find any technology that addresses all these sub-problems, right? Like traffic lights and traffic signs, crosswalks, lane markings, types, driving speeds, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, well, I was talking to Luca earlier this year, telling him about my first experience trying Tesla's FSD Beta here in Michigan.
Yeah.
And, we have a phenomenon here they call the Michigan left turn on some of the major thoroughfares, like Woodward Avenue and Telegraph, that are divided roadways.
Yeah, I'm well aware of these turns.
Yeah. So, we were on Woodward Avenue, and it was supposed to do a Michigan left turn, and the car had no clue at all how to handle it. It would pull up to it, slow down, look at it, say, I don't know what to do, and then move on and go until it found a standard. And if you're a local
here in Detroit, that's like a routine maneuver that you do every day, hundreds of times a day. And that's exactly what we're emphasizing, that it is extremely complicated to reach the consistent level of safety and comfort in driving functions without a consistent interpretation of the driving rules and the road. So that is kind of the premise and the idea behind having high precision maps, regardless if it's through Mobileye's RAM or whatever different solution you can think of. The challenge is, though, how can you create a map that can scale? And when you think about the problems in mapping, first of all is of course geographic scale. You need to cover all the roads everywhere. But second is the map needs to be updated. So again, driving here in Detroit just now, you have I don't know how many construction zones, and we come from Israel, so we think that we know what a construction zone is.
We have two seasons here, winter and construction season.
Exactly. So every winter you have holes and potholes, and then you need to renovate the roads. And so a map that cannot be updated continuously and is in a very 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 quick manner.
And cost effective.
Yes, it's not even. I'm even putting cost aside for a minute. Just talking about the usefulness of the solution will not be a useful product because you cannot trust it. If the map is only correct 20% of the time or 15% of the time, how do you know if the map is correct or not? It becomes kind of a mega problem now to solve. So if you can have this map that includes these features, like a full comprehensive understanding of the road structure, driving rules everywhere, and you can create it at scale, and you can make sure it is continuously updated, then you have something. Now, there is a third layer. When you now start to think of this, now it brings you into this how question, right? So we established the why and what's. Now let's start to think about the how. And in the industry, of course, we're not the only company that is busy around mapping. What you might almost always find is like a survey fleets that are built with many, many sensors. And these survey fleets are then deployed in specific areas you want to map, let's say Detroit, California, whatever it may be. And then they're driving, a certain pattern, and you have a semi-automatic process afterwards, and you create a map, which inherently does not solve the scalability and the map updates problem because it becomes so expensive to maintain. You need like hundreds of thousands of cars to cover all of the United States in that way. So our idea came, and I had the benefit of being involved in Ram since January 2017. So that's like one of the first months.
Very early.
Yeah, one of the first months.
I think it was 16 when it was first announced.
Yes, 16 was first announced. So I was with Ram at the early days, the seeding stage. And the idea was, how can we leverage the strong ADAS footprint Mobileye has? So we're selling tens of millions of IQ chips for ADAS purposes, to kind of upload pieces of puzzles to a cloud, and then we can build a puzzle.
Yeah.
Now, the problem we need to solve is first of all, how these pieces will represent everything you need to know, but then how can you build a puzzle automatically in the cloud? And by design, we thought about a automatic process that will be seamless and be able to continuously update, because these guidelines were our design guidelines for day one. And the benefit we have is the fact that we have tens of millions of cars driving everywhere. So by designing an efficient way to upload data that represent what each car saw on a specific road at any given point in time, now you have the right pieces of the puzzle, and you need to solve the puzzle. You need to find the right way to align the different pieces, and the task is very much like building a puzzle in a way. So that is how we got to where we are with Ram today. And today, the maturity of the technology, and again, one of the things I want to kind of deliver in the message, in the lecture, is that this is not some kind of a far out idea for high-end autonomous vehicles whenever or something like that. It has the potential to redefine what it means, basic driver assist functions. Because if you think of basic driver assist functions, the innovation growth is kind of linear. It's slowly but surely, because there is a very strong constraint about system cost. So there is only so much you want to add to the basic price of the car. And the benefit here is that we're building a database. So by connecting cars to a cloud, you can have access to a database that has a lot of information. And now you can enrich the experience of everyone, not just high-end autonomous vehicles, through this database. So now you can offer new features like again, going back to the traffic light, think of traffic light alert when you're about to cross a red light, or think about, yielding when you need to yield, or, instructing you if this traffic light is a right on red or not, and providing all this information in real time to the driver through the access to this database. And these are not features that are attainable today anywhere. So what we see is that through this database, there will be a certain population of cars that will utilize this the full extent that you can for hands-off driving, eyes-off driving, robo-taxis, and all the, what is traditionally called level 2 plus and above levels of autonomy. We, as you know, moved away from this taxonomy, but all the hands-off, eyes-off, all the hands-off, eyes-off, no driver types of application will, of course, it will be a subset of all cars, but then the vast majority in the next few years will still be hands-on, eyes-on cars. But these will also access RAM for enhancement and for better safety and new features. That is kind of our vision, and you can already see a few OEMs that are tapping into this vision or, have a similar mindset. So Volkswagen is kind of the best example that we can relate to publicly, because most of the things were announced.
In their
Travel Assist.
Travel Assist, exactly. I was trying to remember the branding.
So Volkswagen started, Travel Assist, which is, the Golfs and all the low-end 30,000 euro cars, access RAM to enhance Travel Assist, which offers you better lane centering, lane keep assist, crossing junctions, and so on, as a driver that drives. In addition to that, we have announced a project with Porsche for a supervision system, which is a hands-off system. So you can think of the entire spectrum of offering through this car manufacturer, that all of these next generation of products leverage RAM in a different way. Maybe subset of RAM, maybe the full extent of RAM. But this is why we think that there is so much value in this, because it's about enabling a new type of capability that kind of unlocks a lot of different things that so far seem to be maybe far out.
Yeah, and of course, there's also Polestar 4 that's coming to North America next year.
Zeekr is coming to Europe.
Yeah, with supervision. So, and this is a big part of why I rank Mobileye at the top of the leaderboard this year, because of this approach that the company has taken with, taking the technologies that developed for hands off, eyes off, brain off, and bringing components of that down into mainstream vehicles today that are affordable, that people can purchase and gain benefit from this technology.
That is a very smart point that we honestly we fail to continuously emphasize it, because it's so important that we take it for granted, because this is in our day-to-day lives. But just to give an example why this is such a unique setup. So our CTO is responsible for the driving policy development. He's sitting one floor in our building, one floor above the team that is developing RAM. And every day, he understands new features or kind of conceives new features, new capabilities that RAM needs to deliver for the high-end, far-out autonomous vehicles. Then this is trickled down, to what RAM can offer. And then we use this to offer this for driver assist. So the fact that we're not a standalone mapping company that tries to guess what might be a good feature to add to the map. In one side, we are continuously kind of working on autonomous vehicles end-to-end.
And what are the features that you need to enable that, and you build that into RAM?
And then we leverage this to redefine what basic driver assist means in a very cost-efficient way. So this kind of interplay between our autonomous vehicle development and ADAS footprint allows us to, it's kind of a win-win situation. So the entire industry, regardless if it will source a supervision program or not, can benefit from all these learnings, right? And this helps us to kind of redefine what it means to have the basic or the entry-level driver assist, what can be a very common feature in 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now.
And while there are a number of other companies building similar types of solutions for mapping crowdsourced maps, you guys have had a 5-year head start in production. You've got millions of vehicles on the road that are already contributing data to RAM on a daily basis and keeping those maps fresh.
Well, very interesting.
Just wanted to say that it's a fair point, and there were many announcements about crowdsourced mapping activities from whatever different companies. There were some acquisitions in this field towards this. But the name of the game in crowdsourced mapping is the crowd.
It's you have to have literally that scale of vehicles that are actually contributing data.
So I think the fact, and I don't want you to kind of talk about others. I think you can talk to others better than I do. But I think that the benefit we have, or the advantage we have, is the fact that we have started this activity early, so 6-7 years ago. We have started getting data from crowd fleets in 2018. So these are 5 years of kind of working continuously, tirelessly about improving it, refining it, extracting new learnings, understanding driving patterns from people, understanding how to average those driving patterns, and so on.
I think to me, I think when I did the first supervision ride with the team here, the thing that I learned from that I hadn't known before was it was not just about understanding the road and the features around the road, for localization, but also understanding the driver behavior.
Exactly.
So that in those cases where your sensors cannot see the road, understand.
And basically, there are three pros to this approach. One is the geographic scale coverage. You can cover all roads. Second is the update rate. Third is the fact that you can learn how people are driving. So when you think about higher levels of autonomy, like hands-off drive, hands-free driving, eyes-off driving, it is our way to make the cars local wherever we are operating the car. So if the car is now deployed in Detroit compared to Munich or Tokyo or Shanghai,
you can drive like a Detroit driver.
A lot of these parameters of how people are driving in Detroit or in Tel Aviv, sort of like the Turing test, or if you want to blend in and not be a robot amongst people, a lot of these parameters that define how a local is driving are embedded in the map. So the driving speeds and right-of-way conventions and so on. These are the things that you can eventually abstract what it means to be driving as a local, right? And these are exactly the features that are embedded in the map. So if you drive in, operating in Detroit in the first time, I think we started 3-4 years ago, was 3-4 weeks of work, of kind of customization or localization of the system, the entire system to Detroit. That's it. If you think about others who are operating like, on a city-by-city basis, it takes them years. So just 3-4 weeks, and that is, 80% of this is true for the United States, just to kind of localize it for the United States and driving rules and so on. And the same goes for Munich and Japan and France and Shanghai and all the places that we're operating in the last couple of years. So I think this is a very, very strong advantage of having this, not only the crowdsourced mapping, but also understanding what is interesting to extract from crowd driving. And then embedding it in the map so that the driving function can benefit from it and drive like very naturally. This is probably the biggest, I would say, compliment that we're getting. Everyone who's busy in robotics is the biggest compliment you can get is that it's very natural. There is always one of the biggest problems to solve. Robots are robots eventually. So the fact that you can learn how humans are driving, you can make the robot much more natural. And then you think about yourself, you drove in our systems, it's a lot more comfortable and relaxing, and you can trust the system, sooner and easier, as opposed to driving in a robot that feels like a robot that is very hesitant, very conservative, and practically not as useful as it could have been. I think this is how we see it.
All right. Well, I really appreciate your time. It's always good to talk to you.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to paint their door a vibrant shade of blue. Others have the need to decorate their bathroom with fish, anchors, and other nautical items. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.